Close your eyes. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of tonight begin to fall away. I have 3 stories for you, each one quieter than the last, each one slower, each one designed to take you somewhere far from here. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to scroll down to the comments and tell me which story you were on when sleep finally came. Story 1? Story 2? Did you even make it past this intro? Tell me. That's all I ask. Now, close your eyes and let's begin. History 1. The Cartographer of Forgotten Roads. Part 1. The Map. Eleanor found the map on a Tuesday. Not in a dramatic way, not rolled inside a dusty tube or hidden beneath a floorboard or sealed inside a locked chest with a key long since lost. She found it the way most important things are found, by accident, while looking for something else entirely. She had been searching through the back room of her late grandmother's house, a small house on the edge of a small town, the kind of town that appears on regional maps only as a dot without a name attached. Her grandmother had lived there for 60 years, alone for the last 20, and the house reflected this, a careful accumulation of a quiet life, every drawer and shelf filled with the particular density of someone who had kept everything and thrown nothing away. Eleanor was looking for the spare house keys. Instead, she found the map. It was folded into 8s, tucked inside an old biscuit tin, along with 3 buttons, a length of faded ribbon, and a photograph of a woman Eleanor didn't recognize. The paper was thick and slightly yellowed, the kind of paper that feels almost like fabric between your fingers, soft, worn at the creases, breathing with age. She unfolded it carefully. It was a map of roads, but not roads she recognized. Not the roads outside the window, or the roads she had driven to get here, or the roads that appeared on any GPS or atlas she had ever consulted. These were different, narrower, drawn in thin, precise lines that curved and branched and intersected in ways that felt less like an engineer's diagram and more like a river delta seen from above, organic, flowing, following the logic of water rather than the logic of construction. The roads had names. Small, careful handwriting, her grandmother's handwriting. She recognized it immediately, the particular way the letters leaned slightly to the left, the way the capital letters were always just a little too large. The road of almost rain, the lane of sleeping foxes, the way between 2 silences, the long road home that isn't. Eleanor sat down on the dusty floor and read every name. There were 47 roads on the map. She read them all twice. Part 2. The First Road. She went looking for them the next morning. She didn't plan to. She woke up in her grandmother's bed, in her grandmother's sheets that still smelled faintly of lavender, and lay there in the pale early light, thinking about the map. And before she had consciously decided anything, she was already dressed and downstairs with the map unfolded on the kitchen table, and a cup of tea she hadn't tasted going cold beside it. She chose the road of almost rain first, because of the name, because it sounded like something she had felt many times but never had a word for, that particular quality of air on certain afternoons, the sky gray and full and promising, the smell of wet earth rising even though no rain had fallen yet, the feeling of something about to happen that never quite does.
She drove out of town on the main road, following the map's instructions, such as they were. Her grandmother had not marked distances or compass directions, just the roads themselves, named and drawn, and occasional small notes in the margins that said things like, "Go when the light is low," and "You'll know it when the air changes," and, most mysteriously, "Don't look for it, let it find you." Eleanor drove slowly, windows down, paying attention. She turned off the main road onto a smaller one, then smaller still, then onto a lane she had never noticed before, barely wide enough for the car, lined on both sides by tall hedgerows that were dark green and slightly damp, and smelled exactly like the thing she had been trying to describe. Almost rain. The sky was gray overhead, not stormy, not building toward anything dramatic, just gray and soft and full. The light was the color of old silver. The air through the window was cool and carried that particular earthy sweet scent of soil about to receive water. She drove at walking pace. Birds were singing somewhere in the hedgerows, not loudly, just quietly, as birds do when they're not performing but simply living, small sounds, half-formed, the musical equivalent of thinking out loud. She drove for 40 minutes and went nowhere in the sense that she never arrived at a destination, but she felt at the end of it like she had been somewhere, like something had happened that wasn't visible or nameable but was nonetheless real. She parked on a grass verge and sat with the engine off. The almost rain never came, but the air kept promising it. She stayed for an hour. Part 3. The Cartographer. She found the notebook on the third day. Another biscuit tin, this one at the back of the wardrobe in her grandmother's bedroom. This tin contained only the notebook, small, cloth-covered, the pages filled from front to back in the same careful leftward-leaning handwriting. It was a journal of the roads. Her grandmother had been visiting them for years, decades. Every entry described a different road, when she had gone, what the light was like, what she had felt. The entries were not long, never more than half a page, but they were precise in the way that poetry is precise, not about facts, but about the exact quality of a particular experience. The Lane of Sleeping Foxes, October, late afternoon. I saw none of them, but I could feel them sleeping in the ditches, warm under the brambles, dreaming whatever foxes dream. The whole lane had the quality of a held breath, of something resting deeply. I stayed until the light went and drove home feeling like I had been asleep myself, though I had not closed my eyes. The way between two silences. A gray morning in March. I understand now why it has two silences. The first is the silence before you turn onto it, when you stop the car and step out and the world goes quiet in the ordinary way. The second is different. It comes after 10 minutes of walking. It is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of something that sound cannot exist alongside. I have no better description. You must go yourself. The long road home that isn't. I have been down this road 11 times now. Each time I feel for the entire length of it that I am almost home. Not the home I live in, the other one. The one you can never quite remember but always recognize. I am not sad when the road ends and the feeling goes. I am grateful. It is enough to feel it, even briefly. It is more than enough. Eleanor read the entire notebook in one sitting. When she finished, she sat in the quiet bedroom for a long time, the notebook closed in her lap, and thought about her grandmother, who had lived in a small house in a small town for 60 years and had, apparently, spent a significant portion of that time driving down lanes with names like the Road of Almost Rain and writing about how it felt. She thought about how little she had known her and how much she recognized her. Part 4. The Last Road. She stayed in the house for 2 weeks. She visited 11 of the 47 roads. She kept her own notes in a spare notebook she found in a kitchen drawer. She described the light and the air and what she felt. She was not as good at it as her grandmother had been, but she was learning. On the last day, she drove down the road of no particular destination. Her grandmother's note about it was just 3 words: best saved for last. It was a long road, or it felt long. She drove for what seemed like an hour, but might have been less. She had stopped checking her phone. The road curved gently, always gently, never sharply, through landscape that shifted gradually from farmland to woodland to open hillside and back again, as if the road were showing her everything it had, slowly, without hurry. She had the windows down. The air was cool and smelled like the end of something and the beginning of something else. She felt on that road the particular peace of not needing to be anywhere, of having for this stretch of time no destination and no deadline and no purpose beyond the simple act of moving slowly through the world with her eyes open. She thought about her grandmother driving this same road, looking at this same sky, feeling this same thing. She thought about how some things pass between people without words, without knowing, how you can carry something that was given to you by someone who never told you they were giving it. The road ended at a gate. Beyond the gate, a field, green, very still, with a single tree in the middle distance and clouds moving slowly above it. Eleanor stopped the car and sat. The almost rain came then, finally, soft and even and absolutely perfect. She sat in it with the windows down and let it fall on her hands and her face, and she thought, I found it. I found the thing she wanted me to find. Not the roads, not the map. This feeling, right here. This is what she left me. There is a road with your name on it. You don't need a map to find it. You've been on it, probably, without knowing. Some afternoon when the light was strange. Or some morning when the air tasted like something almost remembered. Some evening when you drove somewhere with no particular purpose and arrived back home feeling, inexplicably, rested. Those were your roads. They were always yours. And tonight, right now, lying here in the dark, with the rain falling somewhere close, you're on one of them. The one that leads to sleep. The one that has no sharp turns. Just a long, slow, gentle curve into the dark and the quiet and the deep, still rest that's been waiting for you all day, just for you.
History 2. The Hotel at the End of the Season. Part 1. Off-Season. The hotel had been closed for 3 months when James arrived. Not abandoned, just closed. There is a difference. Abandoned means no one is coming back. Closed means the chairs are stacked on the tables and the heating is turned low, and everything is waiting, quietly, for the season to turn. He was the caretaker. Seasonal work. 6 months on, 6 months off. He had done it for 4 years at different properties: a ski lodge in the mountains, a beachside resort, a country house hotel that spent its winters empty and its summers full of wedding parties. He liked the off-season. He liked the quiet. This hotel was different from the others. It was old, Victorian, maybe older, perched on the edge of a cliff above a gray sea, in the way that certain buildings are positioned as if they were placed there deliberately to watch the water. 5 stories, white painted, or once white. The paint had gone the color of old cream, giving the building a soft, warm appearance that somehow survived even the gray November light. It had 40 rooms. He was the only one in it. He settled into a routine quickly. Every morning, a walk around the perimeter of the building, checking windows and doors. Breakfast in the kitchen, which was enormous and quiet, and still smelled faintly of the hundreds of meals it had produced over the years. Something deep in the walls, something that no amount of cleaning had entirely removed. Butter and herbs, and something sweeter underneath. Every afternoon, maintenance. Small tasks, mostly. A door that didn't close properly, a window latch that needed tightening, gutters to check after rain. Every evening, the lounge. He had chosen the lounge as his room, not a bedroom, the lounge, a large room on the ground floor with tall windows that looked out over the sea, and a fireplace that worked, and armchairs that were old and deep, and exactly the right shape for sitting in for long periods, doing very little. He would light the fire around 5 o'clock. He would sit. He would watch the light go out of the sky over the water.
Part 2. The Guests. He started hearing them in the 2nd week. Not alarming sounds, not the sounds of intrusion or danger, just sounds. The particular sounds of a hotel that is used to being full. Footsteps in the corridor above, the distant sound of a door closing carefully, a murmur from somewhere down the hall. Not words, just the warm sound of conversation happening at the edge of audibility. He checked the first few times, walked the corridors, looked in the rooms, each one identical in its off-season stillness, chairs covered in white sheets, curtains drawn, the slight chill of unoccupied space. Empty, always empty. He stopped checking after the first week. The sounds were not threatening. They were, if anything, comforting. The hotel sounded like itself, like what it was when it was alive, like a memory of fullness playing quietly in the walls. He began to think of them as the guests, not ghosts. That word felt wrong, too dramatic, too loaded with the wrong kind of meaning. Guests, people who had stayed here at some point and left something behind, not anything visible, just the impression of themselves, the warmth of having been somewhere, preserved in the walls the way the smell of cooking was preserved in the kitchen. He started saying good morning to them. Walking down the corridor on his morning rounds, he would nod at the closed doors and say quietly, "Good morning, good morning, good morning." He felt slightly foolish the first time, less so after that, and after a week, not at all. Part 3. Room 14. Room 14 was different. He noticed it in the third week. Every room in the hotel had a particular quality to its silence. The silence of an empty room is not uniform, in the same way that empty fields have their own distinct quality, depending on their soil, their history, what grew there before. Room 14's silence was softer than the others, warmer. He started leaving its door slightly open on his morning rounds. He couldn't explain why. It just felt right, the way a window feels right to open on a particular morning, not because it's hot, but because something in the air suggests it. He looked at the guest book for room 14 once, out of curiosity. The hotel kept old records, ledgers going back decades, listing names and dates, and the occasional note about special requests or particular visits. Room 14's silence had been requested, specifically by name, by an extraordinary number of guests over the years. He read some of the names, then the notes beside them. Came every October for 30 years. Said room 14 was the only place she ever slept properly. Honeymooners returned for their anniversary every year for 2 decades. Writer stayed 6 weeks. Said the room helped him think. Elderly gentleman came alone, read all day, slept all night, never wanted anything, always happy. James read the entries for a long time. Then he moved his things into room 14. Part 4. The season turns. He slept better in room 14 than he had slept anywhere in years. Not just longer, differently. He slept without the usual background noise of his own mind, without the half-formed anxieties that normally accompanied him into sleep, the mental list-making, the replaying of conversations, the low-level hum of being a person with things to worry about. In room 14, all of that went quiet. He would lie down and look at the ceiling, white, slightly cracked in one corner, in a pattern that looked vaguely like a river delta, and listen to the sea, which was always audible from this room, and feel the warmth of the room settling around him like something placed there deliberately, like someone had built this room knowing that one day he would be in it, knowing that he would need it. He thought about all the people who had slept in this room before him, the woman who came every October for 30 years, the honeymooners who returned every anniversary, the writer who needed to think, the elderly gentleman who wanted nothing and was always happy. He thought about how a place could hold something, not memory exactly, not in any literal sense, but the accumulated effect of many people feeling in the same space a particular way, how that might change a room, make it softer, make it warmer, make it, over time, a place where the next person who arrived, exhausted and not quite knowing what they needed, could lie down and feel, without understanding why, that they were safe, that they were held, that they could let go. Some rooms remember, not with photographs or written records or any visible trace. They remember the way the body remembers, wordlessly, completely, in the cells and the muscle and the deep tissue. They remember warmth. They remember rest. They remember every person who lay down in them and let go of the day and drifted slowly into sleep. And when the next person comes, tired, carrying whatever they carry, those rooms offer it back, all of it, every night of good sleep they have ever held. Yours is waiting. You don't need to find it. You're already in it, right now. this moment, this dark, this quiet. This is your room. Rest now. You're safe here.
History 3. The Keeper of Small Things. Part 1. The Collection. Nobody knew what Margaret collected. Her neighbors knew she collected something. You could tell with certain people that they were organized around an invisible center, a private pursuit that gave shape to their days. But what it was exactly, no one had ever been able to determine. Her house showed no obvious signs, no shelves of figurines, no stacks of books or vinyl records, no visible collection of any kind. The house was, if anything, unusually uncluttered for someone who had lived there for 40 years. But she collected. Every morning, Margaret walked. Not far and not fast. Through the neighborhood, through the small park at its center, sometimes along the canal path, sometimes down streets she had never taken before. She walked with her hands in her pockets and her eyes on everything. And she collected. Not objects. She collected moments. Part 2. The Method. She had started it without knowing she was starting it when she was very young. A particular afternoon when she was 7 or 8 years old, sitting in the back garden while her mother hung washing on the line. The sheets were white and they moved in the wind, and the light was coming through them in a way that made them glow from the inside. And she had thought, very clearly, for the first time, I want to keep this. Not a photograph, not a drawing, just the thing itself, held somewhere. She had closed her eyes and paid attention to the light through the sheets, to the smell of clean cotton and cut grass, to the sound of the sheets moving, a soft percussion like very gentle applause, to the warmth of the sun on the top of her head, to the feeling in her chest, which was the feeling of being somewhere beautiful without having gone anywhere at all. She had held all of it as carefully as she could for as long as she could, and then she had let it settle, down and down and down into some deep place inside her that she had no name for, like lowering something precious into still water and watching it sink slowly to the bottom, intact, preserved. She had been doing it ever since. Part 3. The Inventory. On winter evenings, Margaret would sit in her armchair by the window and take inventory. Not write it down, just visit. The light through the washing sheets, still there, perfectly preserved, still golden. A morning in her 20s when she had walked to work in early autumn and every tree on the street had turned overnight, and she had stopped in the middle of the pavement and just stood there, surrounded by red and gold and orange, the light coming down through the leaves in long, slow columns. A train journey once, at dusk, through flat countryside, the sky going pink and orange and then deep violet, and the lights of farmhouses coming on one by one across the fields, and the rhythm of the train underneath her, steady and reliable and kind. An afternoon with her sister, 20 years ago now, sitting in a cafe with the rain falling outside and the windows steamed and the coffee hot and nothing in particular happening except that they were both there, both warm, both present, neither one needing anything else.
She visited each one. She turned them over gently, like stones from a beach, looking at them in the light of memory. They were always intact. They were always exactly as she had left them. Nothing was lost.
Part 4. The Gift. Margaret was 73 when she started giving them away. Not the moments themselves. Those were hers and hers alone, and she had learned enough about memory to know that experience cannot be transferred directly, only described, but the method. She told her granddaughter about it one evening when the girl was 14 and going through something hard, school or friendships, or the particular diffuse unhappiness of being 14 in a world that moves too fast. She told her about the washing sheets, about the closing of eyes and the paying of attention, about the careful lowering of beautiful things into the still, deep water inside yourself. You can keep things, she said, not forever, maybe, but longer than you think. And when everything feels like too much, you can go down there, you can visit, and it helps. Her granddaughter had listened carefully. She came back 2 weeks later and said, "I found one. I was walking home and there was a cat sitting in a window and the light was just right and it looked at me and I thought, I want to keep this." Margaret had smiled. "Did you?" "I think so." "Good," Margaret said. "You'll be glad of it someday."
You don't need to stay awake now. The stories have done their work. The roads have led you here. The room is warm. The collection is safe. Your mind can rest. And the rain will stay with you long after my voice is gone. And when you wake, scroll down and tell me where sleep found you. Story 1, Story 2, Story 3, or maybe right here, in the outro, in the rain, in the quiet. Sleep peacefully. You are safe. You are held. You are home.